All right, so again, or not again, I started this. We're gonna start with a simple shape, a cube. And you could cut out little squares and glue them individually together, but what I've done here is draw out, well, the letter T, and actually I've gone over, I made a grid originally and then put in marker where I was gonna cut. The solid lines are where I'm gonna cut, and the dotted dashed lines are where I'm going to just score, not cut all the way through, just cut through that one layer on one side. And maybe even cut like a little notch out of it so there's an opening there so I can fold it in easier. All right, so again, use a metal ruler and a relatively sharp blade and carefully cut through. Try to follow. And again, be careful of your fingers. All right. Some people, one big cut. I find there's, it's better to score it, but, and actually I'm gonna cut this, nicely unsquare, completely out so it's easier to deal with. If you're really trying to save every bit of cardboard, also the other thing is I put this on the edge. Whenever you have a sheet of cardboard or any flat 2D material that you're gonna cut things out of, don't put it right in the middle, because then you have smaller pieces to work with afterwards. So if you put it right in the middle, you lose a bigger piece. So if I put this on the corner here, in fact, if I flip that into the T on this side, it would be even better. I'd have more shape. Bad on me. But you have a bigger piece, so I will end up with this bigger piece left over. So when you go to draw out whatever you're cutting, think about putting it on the edges of it so you maximize the most of your material. Anytime cutting out cardboard, paper, wood, steel, plutonium. But I can cut away this whole piece now. Sure you can. So that it's easier to cut those other pieces off. All right. So we cut that out. Not really well. So the letter T and the side, I just cut out those lines and then I scored these lines. So these are gonna be a little harder because again, that corrugation is going away, but I can kind of pop them and these will bend real easy. And I can bring it together and I can make a little, if I did it right, make a little box. Now this one's a little bit, what I'm gonna do, now this leaves that outside edge looking like that, which can be kind of interesting. But say if you didn't wanna see that, I could go back in and cut away, because if I try to fold it the other way, it'll be bunching up on those things. Always cut away from yourself, never cut towards yourself, by the way. Oh, also notice I'm cutting on a board, not the table, unless you really don't care about the table. You want to score the table up, you can do that. So I'm going to take these away a little, kind of similar to making a miter. I'm taking away, kind of taking away 45-ish, but if you're trying to hold this at an angle, if it was really dense cardboard, definitely could hold it at an angle so you create like a little 45 cut on either side. Well, 90, Joe. But this being hollow corrugated, which most board you're going to come across is, I just want to get get that piece out of the way there. Anyhow, all right, so I've trimmed away a little bit more in these areas, but also taken away some along the edge here by using the knife kind of at about a 45. Not super accurate because it's cardboard. It's not as big an issue. If you're doing like wood or something like that, you'd have to use proper tools to get the line lined up right. But anyway, that will allow when I bring these together, instead of having, let's see, a butt edge like that, where you see the corrugation, not that that can't be interesting, an edge, or if I fold this up, they go into each other, if I did it right, where I can, if you do it right, you can get a nice clean inside in there. Maybe not all the way around, maybe I need to adjust. But I can get a relatively clean edge. Anyhow, that brings us to putting it together, getting it to stay. Now, one thing you can utilize is the wonderful world of tape. This blue tape is good for taking it off, or like not peeling it off, but I could, depending on what you have. We're going to go through a couple of stages of things here. Tape, you might have tape. So you could use tape to kind of, oops, a little nicer than that, kind of carefully wrap the thing together, and you can get it to stay together. You can also use the tape to help you glue it, which sometimes you could, I could have a bad edge here, I could trim off. But sometimes you could use Elmer's glue if you glue it all together, but that's not going to, it's going to take so long for it to dry that if you try to do that, it'll pop apart. So we're going to use hot glue. But the other thing you can utilize besides glue and tape, if I can get this to work right, are some straight pins. If you happen to have, now be careful, don't drive them into your fingers. But I can use that straight pin, kind of like a little nail. But they're much larger. If I could hold on to the thing. You kind of skewer it in. Now be careful you put it in a straight, because if it comes out at an angle, you will stick it in your finger if it's there. But I can kind of use that to hold it together. It's kind of a neat look with a little rivet on the top there. But the other method you could utilize is a hot glue gun. Ta-da! If you happen to have one, and that can come in, can be nice to have around the house. Hot glue guns are not really great at putting things together, but for porous things like paper and cork and things like that, they can work pretty well. I wouldn't try to use it to, don't try to hot glue a cabinet together or something like that, unless you have some sort of industrial hot glue. And they get hot. This one's been plugged in for a while. One thing about when you first plug it in and it starts warming up, and also you feed in, there's a glue stick in here. I'll just demonstrate. Here. This back part, and some have different design, will push against that and push it through. But when you get to the colder part, or when you first plug it, I don't know, I'm wasting a bunch of glue here for no reason. It stays warm for a while, but it will start cooling off. So this will cool quicker and bond quicker than, say, Elmer's glue or something like that, which can be very difficult to work with in this situation. But you have to keep feeding them in to get it to this little pusher thing back here. Anyhow, be careful of your fingers. If you're holding on to something small and you get the hot glue, it hurts. What you want to not do, a couple of times I've seen people do when they're holding something really tight or really close to where their fingers are, or when they first plug it in and it's not quite warm and they're trying to use it and they're getting just a little bit of glue, so they're squeezing the trigger really hard because the glue isn't that cool, but they're getting a little bit out, and they set it down and cut some paper, and then they go back and they're holding their fingers close to it. Now, at this point, it's already warm and everything, so now when they hit the trigger really hard, a lot comes out and they get it all over the hand and makes a mess. So realize there'll be a difference, and sometimes there'll be a difference as you're feeding them in. The newer one might kind of cool things down too. But you get stringy, so it's quite messy. But what you can do is get things ready and put some glue all the way along that surface. Oh, come on, Junior. There we go. Be stable. I might have to just manually feed it through here. Sorry, my hand is blocking the wonderful action. There we go. This is kind of small what I'm doing. I want to get it on that edge. All right. And I'm going to quickly, not too, quick that you would hurt yourself, hold it together. Hold it together really tight. You're going to want to wait till you think that that's cooled down, which sometimes is kind of hard to tell. If you let it go too soon, it's going to move because it's still soft, and then if you let it open, it opens up and then cools, and then you try to put it down, it's going to be really hard to make it look nice again. One thing you could use a little pin thing to stick it in there and hold it while you're doing that, or you can use a piece of tape that you're going to remove afterwards to hold it. But if you hold it long enough, maybe a minute, it'll kind of stay, and you can kind of test it, see if it moves. All right, so you want to let it cool completely, and you want to kind of press it together so that you get a relatively clean edge. And sometimes you get a little bit of, oh no, I spilled a little bit over there. Okay, so you can take the knife and carefully, again, The paper is kind of tricky to go through sometimes, but the glue will be really hard. So if I'm holding this and I'm trying to cut that off of there, I'm likely to slip and slice into my hand. So make sure that your hands are always out of the way, okay? And sometimes with the glue, you can do a little sawing action back and forth. Just scrape it off. Make dice. Anyway, that could be better. Anyhow, so that was a cube.